Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. And, as I always mention to you, that we share thoughts and processes that are happening around us, which make an impact and implication. Everything that happens around us makes an impact and has an implication for someone. May not be the same, may not be equal. But today, in continuation of our conversation last week that I had about if Hinduism is facing an existential threat, I want to continue that dialogue because a lot of things are happening in the world. A lot of things are happening to Hindus in America as well. That matter is gaining serious proportions because the views are hardening on all sides. And in the name of freedom of speech or academic freedom, if somebody does something, do I have a right to freedom of speech? Or am I going to be bludgeoned because I don't have the freedom of speech to question somebody's academic freedom? So these are issues which are important. And the word Hindu phobia is gathering momentum. Some people say phobia is a fear. Nobody fears Hinduism. They don't care for us. So the question, but my point of view is that there is an element of Hindu phobia, and I will explain the reason for that later. But to discuss this matter in detail, I have great pleasure in welcoming back Mr. Rajeev Singh, who was with us last week. He's in a senior leadership role with Hindu American Foundation. And thank you, Rajeev ji, for coming back again. And with me is Divyanshi Singhai. Divyanshi is a young lady, very active, very determined. I have spoken with her on the phone. That's why I invited her. She's a strong lady with a strong will and some strong viewpoints. And, it is important that young people are getting involved in Hindu matters or things that matter to Hindus. It's a very important thing to figure out. It's important for young people to get involved. You don't want to end up as Hindus in name only. That is important for the youth of America to become conscious and become aware about your surroundings and what's happening. It's not enough that the various administration in the US government chooses to have Indians in the administration. That's not a favor done, in my opinion. That is sheer performance, skill, and achievement of those professionals that they are in the administration. And President Biden has brought in a lot of people. Mr. Trump had a lot of people. So we have become professionally competent enough, recognized enough to be included in the administration. But I always warn my Indian friends back in India, don't expect anything from them because they are Americans, they are not Indians. So if you think that just because they have an Indian name, their administrative decisions will favor India, you are living in a fool's paradise. Don't, because that's a wrong expectation to have. They have a job to do, let them do it. If they are not up to your expectation, have a conversation, contest it, educate them, but bring them in. And I hope sincerely that this Truskay matter in New Jersey is gathering huge momentum. And on 23rd of April, the young people are going to have a video conference of scholars to say why this particular thing is wrong, academic freedom aside. So I will shoot off with ladies' first philosophy, although I don't believe in it. I believe in equality of women with men. So I will not say ladies first, but since you are here, Divyanshi, go ahead, tell me, do you think that the concept of Hindu phobia that Hindus are facing in this country, how are the young people responding to that? हम तो बूढ़े हो गए, हमारी तो जवानी चली गई, लेकिन what is important is that we are not given up yet. Let me tell you that. We are looking at your back and you have our fingers on your back. So we are not backing out and we are all the way in it. But I'm delighted that young people like you are participating. So share. How did you get involved? What inspired you? How did you become active? What triggered this massive involvement?
Thank you for having me over, Vibhuti Ji. And as you rightly said, that we need you guys with a lot of experience, all the stories that you have to tell us, so that we learn from it. So, saying that Hindu phobia, I think I would disagree with the word phobia itself, as you mentioned earlier, but I would like to call it hatred towards Hindus or anti-Semitism. That I think is a more appropriate word in my view. And I want to share my own story. How did I jump in all the causes, or how did I form a view about Hindus or about Hindu phobia? How did I get aware? So basically, I was raised in a good family with a lot of Bharatiya values, with doing yoga, pranayam, dhyan from my father's side, and then my mother is Jain. So we are a Jain family. So mom tried to teach me about the dharmic rituals of Jainism. So I used to take me to mandir every day and try to teach me about the scriptures and everything. But I think what was missing was the education that we had for so many years in schools, which was teaching us to be that everything is equal, everything is secular, and everything is, rosy in the world. And they didn't show us the real picture, the real history behind it. So I grew up like that, and then I came to United States in 2011, and I actually got driven away with the Christian conversion. Basically, I got converted because I think that that was just one such time where I didn't have answers for myself. My guards were down, as they say it, and I was driven away, and I thought that probably that is the only way, because as they say so. So I converted, and then I came back. I came back in 2020, very recently. So I said dharma vapsi, or ghar vapsi, as they say it. So then I started questioning myself, that why was I driven away? What was the reason? So I came to understand that the liberalism, the history that was hidden from us in the books, and then I did not read much of the scriptures, or much was not explained to me from my family. So I think that was the reason that most of the youth gets driven away, and they don't see the glory in Bharatvarsha. A lot of it is hidden from them, and a lot of is they don't try to, they are living in a denial mode. So I think that is why the reason that youth of today is, the Hindu youth is not even saying that there exists a problem called Hindu phobia. So I want them to first acknowledge the problem before we solve it.
It's wonderful to know that you use the word "people are in denial." You won't believe it if I show it to you. That there is a note I'm writing here: "Are Hindus in denial?"
I read it.
Yeah, are Hindus in denial?
Yeah.
That's a very important issue, and I'm very glad that you were consciously aware of that fact. So I will not go. The conversion is a different matter altogether. But Rajiv ji, I suppose Divya probably explained to all of us the dilemma that a young person faces when they come here, because there is an immediate pressure, subtle or overt, in which the conversion machinery gets into motion. Your thoughts on, if you through HAF, you guys have been able to attend to that issue, or does it pass away as freedom of religion? Because in my humble opinion, I think freedom of religion is a highly political instrument. It's not meant to be what it says, because if you believe in freedom of religion, there are three principal religions in the world: Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and we are Sanatanis. We are step ahead. I put it like that. We are a step ahead of religious doctrines, because if you progress beyond religion, then you become spiritual. So we have already transcended into the domain of spiritualism. These guys can't handle that truth, because freedom of religion, thus, in my opinion, is a huge farcical instrument of administration to control you and I, because we are the only ones who are actually free to pray or not to pray, go to temple or not to go to temple, because we believe that it's our action that defines us. By killing 100 people in the name of whatever God doesn't guarantee passage to heaven or hell. We don't have a concept of heaven or hell. They have a concept of heaven and hell. You need a passport and a ticket to go there, and that is given by the priest. So there's a whole lot of issues involved here. So your thoughts on that?
Vibhuti Ji, first of all, thank you for inviting me back. It's a pleasure to continue the conversation. Divya Ji, nice to meet you. And I honestly had no idea of this conversion and back to being Sanatani. So that's a wonderful, we'll talk at length at some point, because now I'm intrigued. So Vibhuti Ji, I think for a typical immigrant in this country, and I'll talk about a typical and an atypical immigrant in this country, and Hindu for that matter. For a typical immigrant in this country, once you are here, the chances are that either you're coming from, let's say, Bangladesh, or you're a Bangladeshi Hindu, or you're coming from Fiji, or let's say you're coming from Mauritius, or you're coming from India or Nepal. And if you leave aside for a second Mauritius, where Hindus are actually quite well off, they're flourishing, they have done an incredible amount of work in preserving Hinduism, the culture. I mean, look at their temple they have in the middle of a lake. There's a like 60-foot statue of Shiva over there. Like, the kind of work they have done is just mind-boggling in terms of preserving Hinduism. So unless you are coming from these countries or from Mauritius, chances are what you have subconsciously associated Hinduism with in your life is political corruption. You have associated it with poverty. You've associated it with violence inflicted upon you, so weakness, in other words. And the day you land in this country in the West, especially in the United States, what you witness is everything so far advanced and developed, and on the surface being rich and whatnot. And somewhere deep down in a lot of people, that thought crosses their mind, which is, wow, this is what Christianity means. But at the same time, a thought also crosses that this is how Hinduism has kept me backward, my family backward, my country backward. And then when you, so to say, paint on that all the missionary work that you encounter in this country, with folks knocking on your door every Sunday, and then even within that you have the Latter-day Saints, and then you have the Baptists or whatnot, and you see the zeal, and I'm intentionally using that word. When you see the zeal, you then compare and contrast that with the apathy that you notice back home in India, where not only there is no visible excitement, but we actually quite actively take pride in delegitimizing our own history, our own past, our own religion, our own culture, right? That is a very formidable challenge in front of us. How do we overcome that, right? So in a way, if you are a student in this country, it's your academic load that keeps you busy, and you don't think much about it, and somehow you survive it. Or if you are a new immigrant with a family in this country, it's this whole act of settling down that keeps you so busy that, and then on top of that, work that keeps you so busy that you don't get sucked into that. But God forbid, if you get that window of nothingness going on in your life, and the missionary knocks on your door, it happens like this, right? So that is the story of a typical immigrant, if I would say. Now let us talk about an atypical immigrant. So for example, if you are a political refugee from Bhutan, a Hindu refugee that was driven out of Bhutan, let's say 20 years ago, you lived in a concentration camp in Nepal, with no passport, no rights, no job, no citizenship, neither of India nor of Nepal. But now suddenly these doors as refugees open up to the United States, and you come in this country. Imagine this. You have a family of 3 to 4 kids or 2 kids with little or no education, with no money. You land in this country, and the very next day, on top of what I already told you about the luster and the glamour of this country, somebody knocks on your door and says, well, here it is. Here's a book, and here's a God. And from now on, you're the chosen one, and and you are rescued. And by the way, we are here as a community to support you through thick and thin, and we are here to. You have a safety net, and that is a very powerful. Even in it is a very powerful pull. It gives you a sense of community, a sense of belongingness, but most of all, it gives you an identity, right? And we have to do something about it. So at HAF, there has been a lot of action and initiative in terms of resettling some of these refugees and providing them all the support. I'll give you a very basic example. You land in this country, and the first thing you aspire to get is a driver's license. How do you go from your home, from your apartment to DMV? Who takes you there? You don't even have money to pay rent, right? So guess where that money, that ride is coming from? It's coming from somebody from church, a brother, so to say, is driving you. And you immediately see that there is a God, that there are my brothers helping me. Whereas we Hindus are A, oblivious that this is happening, B, take pride in not talking about this because we are secular. But honestly, we don't have the time and energy to get out of our hamster wheels and help our brothers and sisters. So I will stop right there for now.
Sorry, I muted because I was coughing at one point in time. But the important part here is that both of you have expressed very, very well the reasons for conversion, and you explained the typical and atypical process in which people find. This is the classic example of somebody being organized. This is an organized movement to bring people into their fold, the needy, the suffering, the helpless. And you do that in the name of God. So that's a very interesting concept. We also have this similar concept, help others, right? It's not that it is not there in our community, it is there. But you are right. I mean, we are apathetic people to ourselves. And that's my gripe about being a Hindu. We have all the sensitivities, we have all the desires and emotions, but we leave everybody as a seeker. Tumhara karma hai, tumhari naseeb, tumhara bhavish, jo karna hai karo. That's very important. But we will get back to that later. The conversion is, as I tell my Christian friends, that conversion is a sin against God's original intent. Because if God wanted me anything other than who I am, like this, he would have made Rajeev, Robert, Divyanshi as, delight, in the absence of any other word, and me as Victor, or Muhammad, or Rabbi, or whatever. God could have done it this, but God made us who we are today. So by doing the conversion process, and I ask that as a question, and I'm asking again to anybody who is a Christian who is watching it, who gave you the right to convert other people to your faith? Where does that right emanate from? Which God tell you that? That's a man-made phenomenon. And what is happening, that the word Hindu phobia is getting into the lexicon and in a conversation. Many people say it is not phobia. Nobody fears Hindus, but I think they do. And I'll tell you my reasoning for that. And my reasoning for that is, with the advent and advancement in science and technology, we now know that women are not responsible for gender determination of a child, right? We know thunder and lightning doesn't happen because gods are angry. A tsunami and a 16-inch nor'easter on a potential of earthquake in Los Angeles is not because God wants to punish people living in California, or New York or Maine suffer intense nor'easter. It's not God's act, it's a nature's act. And the decline in religion in the West is happening because of the advancement of science and technology, because nobody says, hey, where is God when something evil happens? Why didn't he do? Why didn't he save? Why did he let 9/11 happen? Things like that have begun to rake up the minds of the people at a base level and the educated level. Okay, fine, I will say, hi, God, bless me. But beyond that, what is God going to do for me? So there is a very interesting dichotomy is happening in the lives of people, and the advancement of science and technology is enabling people to understand there is one sun, there is one earth, there is one H2O for everybody, right? There is no difference. And thus, our philosophy is becoming relevant for these guys now. Because whether you pray or don't pray, nobody condemns you. We don't talk about going to hell or heaven. We talk about rebirth depending on what your karma has been in this life. What you will become post death is entirely a function of how good or bad you have been, and that's how you will reap the reward in your next birth. But these people have the ticket and passport for heaven or hell. And I ask this question of everybody, Muslims and Christians, have you been to heaven? Can you share your experience of being in heaven or hell? Anybody has gone there who can come back and give us an autobiography? My life in hell or my life in heaven? How do we know? As my Punjabi friend said, Khud mariye na, swarg jaiye na. So the point is, there are certain elements of truth that are coming out. So tell us about both of you. Divyanshi, you start by saying, where does this concept of fear, do they fear us, or they are trying to subjugate us in the name of?
So you give me a new perception. Actually, I was not thinking it that way, that why do they fear us? Because I was always thinking that why will they fear us? Because we have this philosophy of not harming anybody, not even, we have the non-violence is one of the principles of dharma, right? Ahimsa. So, and then I come from Jain family, which stresses a lot on ahimsa all the time. So why would they fear us? We never went out as massacrers. We never tried to plunder anybody. We never tried to do the ethnic cleansing. So I always thought that why would they do that to us? I mean, why would anybody call me Hindu phobe? Or why are they Hindu phobe? So I always thought that they hate us. But I think that what you said makes a lot of sense. So I think that they fear us, and that's why they start hating us. That is how it goes. So they are fearful once they realize what you said, that science is revealing things one by one, which follows in the line of the philosophy of Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma. And now they understand it very well, and that's why they started hating us and subjugating us. So it's a combination. I think it's a combination of all of it, that they know what Sanatan Dharma is, as in more Sanatan is reaching out of the borders of Akhand Bharat or Bharat. And as it is spreading, I think they're getting to know us more. And once they start getting us know more, they're doing yoga, they're doing pranayam, they're doing meditation, dhyana, and they're following the Ayurveda concepts as well. So I think that they know all of it, that what beauty we hold and what kind of glory the Sanatan scriptures had or Sanatanis have. So now they started hating us because they cannot override us with their philosophies. So I think it's a combination.
Fair enough, absolutely. But I do consider one thing is that I look at my American friends of all colors. They always keep telling me, why the hell don't you explain and talk to us about your faith the way you talk? Because if this is what your faith is all about, that's great. That's great, but we must learn about it. And Rajivji, because you are with HAF and you have been doing human service to the entire cause, What is the step that we need to take, and what HAF is doing to reach out to, in addition to protecting itself and speaking and policy and everything else, what are we doing to really educate people to embrace without having to convert? I mean, look at it this way, that in this country, even yoga is a subject, yoga is subject matter of a debate. And that was so funny that Alabama court ruled that we can't do this because it will lead to spread of Hinduism. And I said, here goes freedom of religion out of the window. So I wanted to tell that no Alabama guy is welcome to India anymore. Don't come to India to convert anymore. That's what your rule says. If you fear Hinduism because of yoga, we haven't even done anything as yet. Why should we allow your missionaries to come to India and convert?
So, Vibhuti Ji, I think there's two parts in your question, and let me start with the first thought we were on, which is, why is there a fear? And my perspective is that in Hindu phobia, within Hindu phobia, there's about 3 or 4 different strains of it. One comes from a strain of one originates in a devout Abrahamic. Right? It could be a Christian, it could be a Muslim, or somebody, maybe a Jewish person as well. And the idea is that there is this one book. There are the believers and the non-believers. There's this one God. The God is somewhat partial. The God is the most benevolent to the believers and is full of wrath for the non-believers. But then there also is this idea that there is heaven, and everyone will rise to that heaven, and there's something holding us back from rising to that heaven. And perhaps in their narrative somewhere in one form or the other is the story that these non-believers are the biggest obstacle that stand in the way of either the second coming of Jesus or the rise to the heaven and whatnot. So at some point, if you put yourself into the shoes of a devout Christian who believes in this philosophy, who then is fearful of the non-believers, especially if they're becoming successful, especially if they are settling and migrating to parts of the world that they never existed in. Well, at least as per their understanding of the history, right? So there is that strain of fear. Now, the second strain of fear is that what if these people become politically active and engaged, and then start to drive policies that look like or that originate from their religious texts? How does that influence my way of life as an Abrahamic? So there is that strain of Hindu phobia as well. And there's there's 3 or 4 other noticeable ones, but I will just stick to those 2. The third one that I just want to drop in and to introduce for a bit is a Hindu phobia of a genuine Abrahamic who believes that if we are not Christian or if we are not Muslim, we are sinners and therefore we will go to hell. And they genuinely then fear about this strain of ideology of non-believers spreading in the society, and they generally believe and fear the decline in the morals and the values of the society as well. So I've encountered those kind of Hindu phobes as well. Now, that said, how do we address this issue? Well, I'll tell you what HAF does to address these issues. So first of all, a big effort that HAF makes is to simplify the understanding of Hinduism into 3 to 4 bullet items, the big basic points. Things like respect for all, things like not believing in conversion or proselytization, stuff like that, or Sarve Sukhina Bhavantu kind of Vasudev Kutumbakam kind of philosophical bent that we have. And armed with that, and it's an interesting, I'm using the word armed, but equipped with that view of the world, with that simplified view of Hinduism, we then engage our interfaith community and help them understand why do we not fear going to hell, or why do we believe that we are not sinners, right? So what we encounter is that there is a genuine misunderstanding about Hinduism, because Hinduism has never been either taught in its true identity in the West, or people of other faiths, especially the Abrahamics, just have not had the time or the intent to study about Hinduism. I mean, why would they? Like, if I as a Hindu do not study Islam or Christianity, how can I expect them to do that, right? So
we don't even study Hinduism by ourselves.
well, yeah, which in itself is a topic of conversation. Good one. So the first thing is engaging people in the interfaith community and helping them understand that we are not enemies, we are friends, we are their well-wishers. So that is path number one. We then take similar understanding of Hinduism and the beauty of Hinduism, and we take it to the policymakers and lawmakers and help them understand that, to your point, Vibhuti Ji, last time, that secularism, dharmic view of the world is much more secular. It's ultra secular than what even secularism can achieve, right? So being able to just share that perspective of why Hinduism has never entangled itself, or Hindu philosophies have never entangled itself with the governing ideologies of any of the eras in India. How do we, the separation of church and state, so to say, which is a big fear in the Abrahamic world, why has that never been an issue in the Hindu world? So taking stuff like that and then associating it with the well-being of all people and the well-being of the planet, as our scriptures talk about, and then showing that side of our religion or of our ideology to our policymakers is another important aspect of Hindu American Foundation's work. But the third most important pillar of HAF's work has been to portray Hinduism correctly in the textbooks that our kids of all faiths go through in public school systems, elementary, middle, and high school, so that they understand, these other kids understand, an American white girl who walks into the classroom every morning after having read a chapter or a verse of Bible sitting at her in her living room, who then walks in, should be able to understand what her Hindu classmate believes in, that he is not about to go out and pull out a weapon and kill her because he believes that she's any lesser of a human being, right? How do we correct that narrative about Hinduism in the classrooms? Or how do we tell people that Hinduism is not associated with these British colonial constructs that were used to manage India by the British or control India by the British? How do we wipe them out from our history and textbooks? So those are some of the maybe the three of the many ways in which HAF tries to instill confidence and self-respect, not only in adult Hindus in America, but also in the next generation of Hindus in America.
That's very powerful, and that's the right way to go about it. There is, I always look at life in a sense that there is no right answer, but there is always a better option. And I suspect that because anything right today can be wrong in the next moment because of variety of change, but a better option helps understand things better, to put it that way. I'm very curious, Divyanshi, and you are perhaps one of those rare examples of people who crossed the line into another faith and returned home. And I would like you to share your feelings and emotions about moving into the other line and returning. So I understand now, Rajiv ji explained it very well. You explained it, how you moved into the side. But what was it that you saw there that made you come back? But that's important for me to understand. because your experience is not something that I have ever had. But just to give you the feeling, I was once asked here in New Jersey by somebody, a Muslim guy, and I will say this in Hindi because that's exactly what he told me. He said, "Jha sahab, aap bahut नेक इंसान हैं, आपको मुसलमान बनना चाहिए." And I have always believed in the reaction versus response. So I said, reaction की जरूरत नहीं है. बंदे ने ऑफर किया है तो इसको मैं अपना सवाल पूछता हूं. तो मैंने उससे सवाल पूछा कि पहली बात ये बताइए, are you suffering from noble people within your faith that you are inviting an outsider to join you? What contribution will I really make? Second, if you already reckon me as a noble human being, that's because of my parents, that's because of my education, my land, my soil, my education, and who I am. You did not contribute a penny worth of salt to make me a noble human being. So he was saying, Hamare Islam. I said, listen, yaar, it's not about Islam. You invited me. I'm thankful to you. But my question to you is very simple. हमारा क्या हो जाएगा उसमें? ना आपने हेवन देखा है ना मैंने हेवन देखा है. भगवान तो इतने कमाल की चीज है कि हम मंदिर में जाते हैं तो साष्टांग करते हैं पूर्ण या अर्ध, और आप भी अपने घुटनों पे टिकते हो. So why even go there in that domain? Right? आपके भी हाथ हैं, हमारे भी हाथ हैं, आपके नाक हैं, आपके कान हैं, वो तो एग्जैक्टली सेम फंक्शन है. आप अल्लाह अकबर करते हो, मैं जय श्री राम कहता हूं, मैं जय श्री कृष्ण बोलता हूं. और मेरा बड़ा फेवरेट है पंजाबी का, की फर्क पैंदा. तो मैं तो वो भी बोल देता हूं. So this is the question that I'm driving you, and I want to hear from you in quick 2 minutes. What brought you back?
So should we start with what got me in or what brought you back?
Got you in, you explained partly.
Okay.
Yeah, you said, and Rajeev ji also elucidated on that very well, that there are reasons of loneliness, this, that, and so that I understand, and whatever other motivation. I'm more curious to know what triggered your return.
Got it.
And welcome back.
So, to put it simply, I never stopped being inquisitive. Even when I was in faith, the other side, for 2 years or so, I was like, I bought the book. I bought it. I gave into the book that this is the only way, eternal hell and eternal heaven. But then over the years, I started being inquisitive again, which is my basic nature. And I started asking why. Why they are saying this while Sanatan Dharma says the other way. So I was doing a comparative study all the time. I never stopped questioning. And the final snap happened when the Palghar lynching happened, when the 2 monks were killed. And I asked my mentor on the other side that, they are getting the communal colors are being given to the separatist movement, basically. So that is why I think that the Palghar lynching happened, and they have instilled the hatred against Hindus in saffron color robes or saffron clothes. So the point that she made, or my mentor made, just snapped me out that, it is happening from both sides, and the persecutions of their side is happening too. So I questioned that, is it a legitimate answer, And then I started reading about things more and more. And I felt like, I should just keep on reading more and more, and want to know that what is the exact history of the other side. So I was never... I never got into that before that. So when I started reading about historical aspects, how they started building their roots in Bharatvarsha, and how they started spreading throughout the world, where it's all started from. And then I came across a lot of articles, Vibhuti, a lot of videos, a lot of doing the comparative study of Sanatan and the other side. So I think that brought me back. So I would say thank you to my inquisitive nature, or I didn't want to stop questioning. So I think once the person stops questioning, that's the end of it. And that's what the other side scripture says, don't question.
That's truly fascinating. And I'm very, very touched by your sharing your experience and the personal part of it, what I would put it, that you always stayed consciously aware. And
Yes.
that's what made you learn more about the deeper aspect of it. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to
Thank
express
you.
my deepest gratitude for you to be coming out and sharing it with the audience around here. Because Garvapsi was made in India as anti-freedom of religion movement. Think about it. That was also that Indians are converting others to leave their faith and join. It was bizarre that how we systematically lose the PR war. It's
And
something interesting.
want to thank you, actually, not just myself, that I made myself come back, but all these scriptures, all the videos that people like you are putting, or everybody who's speaking about Sanatan Dharma and the other side, and the comparative study. I want to thank them all, actually, all the beautiful articles that portray that what exactly I was missing. So the self-consciousness and the self-awareness brought me
Brilliant.
back, as you said. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. Rajiv ji, there is one thing which is happening. I saw your tweet in the morning that you shared with me about the introducing the caste element in American society. The one thing which I have been very proud, I've been telling Indians back home that, we Indians are doing well here because we have no reservation. We have no caste-based distinction in the workplace. I don't even know who is who. I personally, honestly, I do not know. Never cared to find out a fellow Indian's caste, whether he was X, Y, or Z. Maybe also because of my upbringing in a school in Bihar where we all were together. The tribals, the settled caste, one of my very good friends from the town of Bhagalpur, his name was Pritam Hari. He's no more. Pritam Hari's mother used to clear the earthen pot of the morning waste, you know. But he was my school buddy in the school. We were playing football team and everything else. And we used to travel back to Bhagalpur in vacation together, and he used to come home and play with us. He and I used to play. So what I'm saying is that this is the part of the background I come from. So I never cared for the caste creed of anybody. I have done carpentry, I have done masonry, I have done bathroom cleaning. It's part of our ritual, our life. But how did the caste thing happen in America, or the likelihood, the fear, or the political viciousness with which or the way it is being introduced here? I have always told my Indian friends, people in India, that the beauty of NRI community in America is that nobody knows who is what. Everybody is doing whatever they are capable of doing, earning whatever they can. Nobody there is to tell them that is a reservation for you or this is a reservation for you. How did this caste thing creep in? Who instigated that? Who is the mastermind behind it? I would call that an evil force. That's my definition of defining that, unhesitatingly. Please.
Yes, so I think there are, let's start with the last part. Who are the main actors? Well, we know of many, but the three, so to say, that are quite visible, quite vocal out there are groups such as Equality Labs. Then there is a group called OFMI, which is Overseas Friends of Minorities of India. And to some extent, another group called Hindus for Human Rights. So think of these groups as a bunch of individuals who are, in some cases, disgruntled with their past in India, or are being or intellectually supported by anti-India forces, obviously at home here in the United States, but also from the Indian subcontinent. There are groups that are whose members have been, in some cases, for legal reasons, asked to leave India because of the anti-India activities they were doing in India, and therefore are genuinely disgruntled. They hate India, they hate Hindus, and so
You're talking about NGOs, right?
No, I'm talking about groups over here in the United States, groups
right.
Such as Equality Labs and OFMI, which are the front groups peddling anti-India, anti-Hindu hate. So those are the 2 or 3 groups that I wanted to call out. Now, moving back to your earlier question as to how did this happen. So I think it's a very, it would be naive of us to assume that this is a new development. I cannot even in the history uh, go back to when the first instance or the first noticeable caste demand happened in this country. I'm sure it happened many decades ago. But today we are, for many reasons, witnessing a confluence of events where social justice and oppression of based either on the lines of race or many other categories of privilege or underprivilege have become mainstream, and rightfully so. And given what is happening in India with Article 370, Kashmir, farmers' protests, and many such, and Modi as being the leader of elected Indian government, all the anti-Modi, anti-India, anti-Hindu forces have joined hands. So we are at this point talking about evangelical movements supporting this. We are talking about Islamists supporting this. We are talking about Khalistanis participating in asking for caste to be made a protected category in the United States. All in all, what it boils down to is that anything that hurts Hindus, anything that creates a social fragmentation within Hindus, anything that can divide and keep Hindus divided in the United States, for them to either not become socially, economically as strong as they are perceived to be, or politically as a bloc as they have the potential to be. Let's keep Hindus divided. Let's marginalize them in education. Let's marginalize them in corporate America, where they seem to be controlling high tech. Apparently, that's the narrative being floated around. So caste just happens to be that very convenient, time-tested tool of oppression that the British use in India. There's a very well-crafted narrative about caste. And this is exactly what the anti-India, anti-Hindu forces are trying to import from the British colonial history of India into the United States, and just keep Hindus on their toes.
I would like to share my concept of caste. And this is part of my learning. And I said this on my TV, another TV program today, actually, and I've said this before. So I have begun to believe in my theory of caste part of it. This happened when somebody asked me, "You guys have a serious caste issue in India." And I said, yes, we have a problem. It's a problem manifested over a period in time, part of the British policy of divide and rule. And they succeeded. That we were buffoons to fail is our problem. But I will never deny the existence of caste problem. And there have been people who have suffered. Some suffered in way, some suffered in a different way. But what do we do about that? I said, I became a victim of caste thing in India, although I'm the upper caste, so to say, because of the reservation policy that prevented my rise in my public sector undertaking, because of the quota-based reservation policy, because you had to fill up jobs in senior positions also per a quota, that certain number. And I found that I might just lose my position. And in the Indian public sector undertaking, if you lose your position once, your career is over, because you then remain behind, or keep falling behind. I chose the path of leaving that atmosphere. I said, no, I will not work here. That's the time I left Reserve Bank of India, a coveted job. I loved the job. I loved the institution, but I left it with a broken heart, did my MBA, joined American Express Bank, and moved forward because I was always a believer in performance. Because I believe in the phrase performance matters. Whether it's a battlefield, boardroom, or anywhere, personal life, intimacy, everywhere performance matters. That's what matters in life. And that's where Bhagavad Gita says, do your duty and the job to the best of your ability. Your rewards will come automatically. Don't expect anything from that. It's a great concept in understanding. So I told this American friend of mine, actually, the caste system exists in America too. But more than caste in India, it's your racial problem, which is very bad. Do you agree with that? So if you say that there is no racism in America, then I will say I have no casteism in America, in India. But if you say there is a racist problem, and if you say that, yes, we are working hard to take care of that, we are also doing the same, because we have continued the policy of providing them protection in jobs and advancement in life. So we are also doing the same thing. But I explained to him that casteism exists, if you want to use the caste word, everywhere on the planet Earth, in every country. So he was totally taken aback. So I said, let's put it this way. Everybody from the president to the county clerk and the lowest ranking official in the government that is involved in the business of administration and making law, they are the modern Brahmins. Everyone from the armed forces to the building supervisor or a security guard in a bank, everywhere on the planet Earth, he's willing, his job requirement is to give up his life to protect asset and property and life. They are the modern warriors, the Kshatriyas. Everybody from Bill Gates to Ambani to a restaurant guy in India or somebody selling pan and bidi in front of a restaurant, they are involved in trade and commerce and manufacturing. They are the modern baniyas. They're tools of economy. And the bankers, the accountants, the IT guys, the doctors, the electrical fitter, we are all the modern Shudras because we are part of the service industry. So in my house, when I do my job of cleaning up my toilet or urinal, I'm a Shudra at that time. When I am leading the family towards a particular objective, I'm the Brahmin at that time. If my family were to be ever attacked, God forbid, that time I will be a Kshatriya to protect my family. And I do a business and a job to earn livelihood for my family. I'm a trader and a commerce guy. So we are all one. Everything exists in all of us. And he said, holy cow, I never thought about it from that point of view. I said, this is what Ricardo talked about in his theory of economics of division of labor. You do what you are good at. Just as a sportsman, Michael Jordan is the greatest sportsman in the planet Earth. He would have been a lousy administrator, perhaps. Colin Powell was the general of the army and secretary of state. He would have been a lousy basketball player. But this is where the fulfillment of life happens. But I will come back to you, Rajiv ji, for one more reason. So I think for the first ever time as an organization, I feel that Hindus have been in attack in India because we have no organization that is militant enough. I'm not using the word militant as a militancy. I'm saying militant as an aggression, as to take up something with a cause, just as Indian American Muslim Council attacks everything Hindu and everything India in the name of democracy and human rights. What do you think will happen? Because HAF is one of the unique institutions that is representing many Hindus of all colors. We have VHPA, but not many are there. Do you think that HAF is prepared from its current role and responsibility to be able to take the devil head on? And when I say devil, I'm using it euphemistically speaking. I'm not calling anybody devil, but as a slang, are we in a position to take the devil head on? Rajivji.
So Vibhuti ji, great point. Great question. I would like to come back to your perspective about division of labor and add another facet to it, which may be interesting. But I'll do that when you give me a signal. For now, I'll address your question.
Okay.
I think HAF has done an incredible work in the last 15 to 18 years in its existence in representing the interests of over 3 million Hindus in this country. At the same time, HAF does talk about the interests of all people and the planet at the same time. And this is what makes HAF very unique, which is that the policy recommendations, the education that we share with policymakers is of the interests of humanity. It is about respect of individuals. It's about pluralism. And that is what makes HAF very, very unique in the sense, and so unique that our supporters who donate to HAF understand why the longevity of HAF, the good work that HAF is doing. Now, it has been all good so far, and we have withstood a lot of challenges. We continue to put the Hindu interests and interests of all Americans out to policymakers, no doubt about it. But what we are noticing now with the focused anti-India, anti-Hindu efforts that have sprung up, that have organized themselves very well in the last about 2 years or so, will require a fundamentally different level of financial support to organizations such as HAF. Let me leave our viewers with no doubt that if you think that you have not donated, if you have not reached into your pocket with the intent to donate to HAF, I can tell you right now that your future is not secure in this country. I can also tell you that the future of a lot of Hindus around the world, in countries like Malaysia, in countries like Fiji, where they continue to be oppressed, is not secure either. So are we equipped? Is HAF structurally equipped, and does it have a track record and the experience needed? Yes. But will it be able to face challenges of these multiple fronts that are opening up all across the country? Not as easily, unless people reach into their pockets and start to support organizations like HAF. Every time that somebody decides to donate to an organization, they have to ask a question, which is, are they donating? What is the return on their dollar they want? In the sense, do they want to see that dollar into action, into defending their rights and defending equal protection for them tomorrow? Or do they want to see that dollar bring them back the value 10 years from now? In donating to HAF, in supporting an organization like HAF, your dollar gets to work tomorrow, right? And that is very important for Hindus to understand in the United States.
Thank you. And you can add the fifth dimension to the cost thing.
Well, so that is a very interesting perspective you shared about division of labor and how caste exists even in the United States. But I just wanted to portray a scenario to you, which is that think of, and it is an unhappy scenario, but it is a real scenario. Think of over 10 million illegal immigrants in this country who are undocumented, who work day in and day out in horrendous conditions, picking oranges or almonds in farms, no health insurance, no decent living conditions. Obviously, they fear for their rights, so they never reach out to law enforcement. God forbid anything bad happens to them or their women. Not having enough money to send their kids for a good education. What we are witnessing right in front of us in this country, in the capitalist, hyper-capitalist model of life that we, or society that we have around us, with the current laws and the realities of legislation and the policies that we have around us, we are creating a permanent underprivileged class in this country. We already have created it. Rather, we are adding more to that big count already. And at the same time, we have the titans of the industry who are today playing in money, and they lose $20 billion or $30 billion when share prices go up or share prices go down. I read a news story somewhere that all the top 10 or 15 billionaires in this country recovered their entire earnings after the COVID market crash by about December of last year. And you're talking about billions and billions of dollars without doing anything in terms of having to create a new business or launch a new enterprise or launch a new product, just by their investments, right? So when you have such a disparity, you clearly have a lot of underprivileged people in this country and a lot of super privileged, hyper privileged people in this country. We already have a class system in this country. It's just that we either do not feel socially acceptable to bring it and show the mirror to America, at times, or we just don't know enough about those. I have many friends who have who get out of their homes, sit in their cars, reach their office, get out of their homes, reach an airport, fly out for vacations in Hawaii, and come back. They have no idea what West Virginia is like. They have no idea that people have no health insurance. They have no idea people lose teeth at 35 years of age in parts of this country, even today. They have no idea that there are parts of this country where people do not have running water or flush toilets. So the point is that, to your point, yes, there is a big segment of underprivileged people in this country.
Yes,
it's just
yes,
that
yes.
we have hidden them very well.
No, you are absolutely right. The underprivileged class, every country has its own share of billionaires and own share of poor people. And, as I have often said, that this country is 3 times larger than India in terms of perspectives, has 1/4 the population, right? And ever since 1991, I have been hearing that this country, we need to do something about comprehensive immigration reforms. Both parties are equally responsible for exploiting that scenario. And I have also said that, US can accommodate 300 million people. If India can live with 1.23 billion people in 3 times smaller country, they can come here. But the question is, at what time, what pace? And the politicians are not interested in immigration reform. They are also, it is important, on the other side, there are Central American countries where people are running away to make their life better, or running away from atrocities or lawlessness in their countries. Why don't we do something about fixing the system there? I think those countries, all the countries that are, why don't they follow the example of those countries that have been successful and made their life better? I mean, that's the point which I'm trying to raise here, is that I'm not against immigrants. That is, a class is being created is a different matter. But if you saw the news today, those people who are undocumented, they will be flying without any ID, but you and I will have to give an ID to fly the same Delta Airlines. The point is that this country is compassionate, wants to take care of it, but sadly enough, why Mr. Biden did not consider that border was a crisis? Because his vote bank is swelling up, is growing. That is the politics of it. And that's what somebody was telling today, that while the Republicans are talking about facts and figures of the illegality of the entire process, the Democrats are using emotion. You can't contest emotion with facts. You lose out right there. So what is the counter? Should Republican Party say, oh, we are going to eliminate all the student debt? Well, we are playing the $1 trillion game. It's like India में एक बार किसी जमाने में लखपति बड़ा होता था, आज तो लाखों करोड़ की बात होती है. I have lost sense of zeros. So likewise here in this country, they are talking about $1 trillion budgets. So when you are trying to fix that, fix the real problem. But as a geopolitical person, there are times when politicians themselves do not want a problem solved. Because if the problem is solved, their constituency disappears. This is something, as a chairman of a bank who was my batchmate, who told me that Lalu Yadav, when he was the chief minister, and I'm naming him, not out of disrespect, but as a real story, he was chairman of a bank. He was told by the central government, go and give him some money, check it out. He went there. He said, from my bank, I will give you 4,000 crores. He said, हमारे account में credit कर दीजिए, Reserve Bank के general ledger account में credit कर दीजिए. This guy was very upright. He said, आपके account में नहीं देंगे. आप जो है projects बनाइए, whether it's poultry, irrigation, agriculture, industry, sugar, whatever industry बनाइए, हम industry को fund करेंगे. And then he was told that आप जो है कर्मचारी हैं, अधिकारी हैं, आपको राजनीति कहाँ से आएगी? हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी चाहता, जब तक गरीब रहेगा तभी हमें वोट देगा. It's a brilliant lesson. Sadly true. जब तक हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी गरीब रहेगा तभी हमको वोट देगा. अगर भैया वो अमीर हो गया तो हमारी तरफ घूम के भी नहीं देखेगा. So what is happening here in US? Those 11 million illegal undocumented people who are here, they are permanent vote bank for Democrats. Maybe 70, 80, 80, 20, 70, 30 or whatever percentage is there, but they become a vote bank. But we talked about the caste part of it. Divyanshi ji, I would like to hear from you. Is the democracy is suffering through its own processes, where we take care of everybody's rights but my own? Is democracy overburdened by its own freedoms? And are we seeing a stretched out scenario that it is overburdened by freedom of speech, freedom of this, freedom of that? Nobody talks about the responsibility.
I would think so, and I would say yes. We are overburdened by all these thoughts of, as you said, that we are actually, democracy is just driven in a very wrong direction right now. And the actual definition of democracy is overburdened by so many different thoughts of people, and religion has jumped in, and people's personal thoughts, people's personal desire, people's personal aspirations have jumped in. And as you have very well explained, that it's all about vote bank, and politicians are trying to achieve that, and everybody has their own aspirations and desire, but the actual definition has lost its meaning and its importance. So I think that's very relevant today.
Thank you. Time is up. As the saying goes, that every good conversation must come to an end, and I think I have exceeded my time limit by a few, but that's okay. I want to thank both of you for being here, for a fabulous conversation. I enjoyed. So if you didn't enjoy it, it's your problem.
I did. I had a lot of learnings.
Thank you. And viewers, thank you very much for being with us. Have a great weekend. Have a great week ahead. And see you next week. Until then, be well, be safe, and be blessed.